Welcome to Let's Talk Bayfront, a lunchtime chat about the transportation projects happening along the Bayfront Parkway in the city of Erie. I'm your host, Jill Harry, the press officer and community relations coordinator for the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation's Northwest region. The Bayfront Parkway is an important corridor for residents, commuters, and visitors. It is used by thousands of drivers every day, as well as hundreds of pedestrians and cyclists. Recognizing how instrumental the Parkway is to the quality of life and the future prosperity of the city and the region, PennDOT has partnered with various groups to identify and design improvements at different areas of the Parkway. Most notable among those is the Central Corridor Project, which is an extensive plan to improve accessibility, safety, and efficiency along the Parkway from Sassafras Street Extension to Holland Street. We started Let's Talk Bayfront series during the design stages of that large Central Corridor project, and we wanted to provide a way to break it down and discuss different facets of this large-scale plan. In today's episode, we will be providing an update on the work that is happening at Sassafras and State Streets, and we will also be discussing some upcoming changes to the traffic patterns in those areas. Joining us to discuss these topics is Justin Baker, who is the construction project manager for the Bayfront Parkway Central Corridor. So before we dive into questions that we have for Justin, I just wanted to remind those who are listening live that you can submit questions throughout this discussion by using the Q&A chat feature through Teams Live. As time allows, we will read as many of those questions on today's topic and try to provide those answers. You can also turn on captions by clicking on the three dots near the top of your screen and then choosing language and speech in the drop-down box and turn on live captions. So with all those formalities out of the way, welcome, Justin.
Yeah, thank you.
Justin, you were here for earlier sessions on the series. You gave us a project overview at the beginning of the construction season. You also came on previously to discuss the Soldiers and Sailors Home. So we appreciate you making time to come back and let everybody know what's going on with this huge project down there on the Bayfront.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's three major intersections in this project, and I know you've got a lot of work going on at the different areas. So we thought it might be easier for everybody if we just kind of break it down and talk about it a little bit intersection by intersection. So if you're okay with that, we'll just go ahead and start with Holland and work towards Sassafras Street. So what kind of work have you been doing at the Bayfront and Holland Street?
Yeah, so the focus at Holland is basically relocating all the necessary underground utilities, which will enable us ultimately to expand our footprint. The work includes water line relocations, sanitary sewer work, and relocating the overhead electric into new underground facilities. In the near future, you'll see some storm sewer work going on and drainage work east of the intersection with Holland. And ultimately that'll basically be the entirety of the work for this season.
So at Holland, we're just doing prep work for all that big work that's coming down the road here in a few years. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Okay. So in an earlier episode, you talked a little bit about State Street and, for lack of better terminology, how the work is going on below the road there. So if people are traveling along the Bayfront, they might not be able to see some of the things that are happening there and how much work is going on. So State Street seems like it's actually pretty active at that intersection. What do you've got going on there?
Yeah, it's very much so. Similar to the issues we found at the old GAF site, initially we're kind of battling 200 plus years of industry and trying to work towards creating a safe and efficient environment to complete our relocations. The central business feed, which provides power to the northern stretch of State Street, is currently located above and also attached to the existing bridge at State Street. To complete this, everything needs to be relocated to a depth of approximately 30 feet below the existing road, which requires substantial excavation, protective support systems, and consistent communication and coordination with the facility owners and adjacent property owners. Much of the legwork has been completed and major excavations have begun. Additionally, if you've been down on the Front Street side of it, you'll likely have noticed the new MSE wall being constructed, and this wall will ultimately support the northernmost lane for the traffic heading west, which will eventually go underneath the new bridge State Street.
Okay, that was a lot of information. So I'm going to try to repeat it back to you and sum it up. So right now we have a lot of electrical and other type of lines that are above the roadway, and your work has really been to create a safe environment for them to put those lines. You said 30 feet under the roadway. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's going to improve the view there that I know a lot of people enjoy when they're up on the bluff. And then the other work you're doing is to create a support wall for the way the roadway is going to change with folks driving partially under the road in a sense, where right now there's where there was train tracks, correct?
Yep, that's right.
Wow, that is a lot of work going on there. So it's been a lot of digging, but for a lot of different purposes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So Holland, a little bit of work. State Street, a lot of work. Sassafras, what do you have you got going on down there? I know that you can see now kind of the roundabout starting to take shape and the change happening there from the signalized intersection to what will be that hybrid roundabout. So where are you in that process?
Yeah, Sassafras has certainly been the busiest of all three for this season. Our initial efforts there included work to relocate the existing water and sewer facilities, followed by the installation of our storm drainage system, which will ultimately support the roadway. This work was predicated on the removal of the necessary soils from the old GAF site, which had to be sampled, categorized, and shipped to appropriate disposal facilities. But now, I mean, you can really see the roadway and pedestrian path begin to take shape out there, and you'll notice paving operations and additional concrete work in the very near future as we prepare to shift traffic and pedestrians onto the partially completed facilities, which will then allow for our continued construction of the intersection. And I anticipate over about the course of the next month or month and a half, you'll see the roadway paved in and really get a feel for what the layout and the future is going to look like for that intersection.
So while you're doing all that work, people still need to be able to get down to the convention center and the hotel and the restaurants and things like that. So how is the work here as it changes? Like, how will people access those things that are along Sassafras?
So there really won't be much of an appreciable effect on how people access the businesses north of the Bayfront. Traffic will essentially just continue to flow east and west. I mean, similar to how it does now. However, they'll ultimately utilize what will be the northern half of the roundabout. This will still include a temporary traffic signal, similar to what's currently out there now to allow for turns both to and from the Sassafras Street Extension. And additionally, like an overhead view with this layout will be disseminated in the near future to hopefully help acclimate, pedestrians and motorists to the pattern before it gets implemented.
So I'm sure that the work at Sassafras especially has really started to generate a lot of attention. And I know that there's a lot of people that want to get down there to the waterfront, a lot of businesses, a lot of sometimes events happening and things like that. So how do you balance that like need to get the work done as quickly and safely as possible, but also, recognizing that there's a lot of accessibility that needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean we're very fortunate to have the partnerships that we do down here, and we've been working and coordinating closely with the convention center, the businesses, the Port Authority, and the city of Erie to try and plan our activities in the most logical way possible. Additionally, the contractor's been very accommodating, and as an example, they even helped us ensure that State Street was fully open and accessible for the Lakes Over Lake Erie event in early July. We'll continue to be flexible in our efforts and try to ensure a minimal impact to the traveling public, while of course balancing and encouraging the project's efficiencies as well.
Is this the most like events you've ever had like in the vicinity of a project that you've done for PennDOT, where you have all of these different, businesses that aren't just there, but actually are, holding these large scale events and things? Like, is this the most coordination you've ever had to do with those things?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I ran the 12th Street Signal project, but just the nature of that work compared to the avenues that we have down here to be flexible. Examples are the times that we had to shut down Sassafras that was impactful. but we were able to work with convention center and schedule those on times when they didn't have major events. And quite frankly, flagging it and reducing it to one lane is much more impactful to those businesses in the convention center than it is to just schedule the work on a day that, that they don't have major events going on. And really things have been working pretty well.
Okay, so before we move on to any of the extra questions that have come in from folks that are listening, or a couple more that I have for you, let's turn back to State Street and talk a little bit about where that work is headed. You were saying that, we have a lot of digging to do there. We have a major relocation in the works with some of the electrical lines. So what are you anticipating at State Street here in the coming weeks and the coming month?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, the underground relocations need to be placed underneath the foundations of the proposed retaining walls at State Street. And this essentially means that they need to be close to 30 feet below the current intersection. Due to the excessive depths, as well as the conflicts with live high voltage lines and other utilities, a closure of State Street will need to occur to accommodate these efforts. The contractor will be working long hours to ensure maximum production to kind of help reduce the overall closure timeframe. And depending on weather and potential impacts, I anticipate the work will likely take 3 to 4 weeks to complete.
So 3 to 4 weeks. And when do you expect that to happen, just for clarity?
We're working through some environmental permit conditions right now, as well as trying to coordinate our efforts with PennDOT to make sure that we're not stagnant for any period of time. So with my best information I have right now, I would anticipate roughly around maybe the 10th of August, we would start our closure. And our goal, of course, would be to try to get it reopened within the month of August.
So we're giving people here a few weeks heads up, but closer to the time, I'm sure you're going to be working with the businesses there, and we're going to do all of those other efforts to make sure that people are aware that this is when the proposal is going to be going into place, and this is when the traffic pattern shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tough to make a call right now on specifics, but as we inch closer and everything sort of aligns, I'll have much better information and much more clarity that I can then provide to the business owners as well as the public.
So we did get a question that's kind of a little bit in line with this. So has the time frame for the substantial completion of the project and things like that, has that changed? Or I know there was during design a lot of coordination with the groups that you and I have already discussed that hold the events and stuff. So are we at this point anticipating any kind of issues that we didn't have before with that kind of coordination and the timeline of the project itself?
No, not at this point. We quite frankly need some things to start going right. We ran into a tremendous number of difficulties and unforeseen things that have created challenges that we're working through, and this State Street closure is one of those things. But as we move forward, the intention was always to try to shut down the State Street intersection at the end of this year. And like I said, we get the crossings done at State Street, and we're able to relocate the facilities that go through them. We're still on track at the end of the year to move forward as originally designed.
I'm sure a works area, as with all the diverse usages that they've had along the Bayfront, there's always going to be these unpredictable things as we move in to the different phases. So it's great to hear that a lot of coordination has been going on behind the scenes, whether it's within PennDOT and the contractor, or PennDOT and the contractor and the local businesses to just keep that flexibility that allows everybody to keep moving forward. So that's good to hear. So a few other follow-up questions. There was already a light at Sassafras before the work started, but PennDOT brought in a temporary light. Why was that needed? Why couldn't you just keep using the light that was already there?
Yeah, it seems like an obvious question. So there's actually two intersections with Sassafras. There's the Sassafras Extension and Sassafras that comes down over the bluffs. And in both instances, the existing facilities could not accommodate the lane shifts that we needed to do. So at the bluffs, we had to install strain poles so that the traffic signals were overhead as they need to be, and also so that the pedestrian crossing was timed in a manner that would accommodate pedestrians crossing that route. And then conversely, down at the Sassafras Street Extension, the existing arm was not long enough to sufficiently reach out across and, basically direct traffic in what is now the through lane, what used to be the left turn lane. So the traffic shifts required both detection of vehicles and also so for signal alignment so that the appropriate lanes were being notified of what they were supposed to do.
Interesting. I guess sometimes you don't think about how like particular those things would be, but I guess, that's why the stop bar is there because it's very particular. It's only going to detect you if you're in the right spot. So if we shift traffic, then the light is not going to necessarily be able to shift with us.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I would just reiterate that again that during all these phases, the vehicle detection is set up in conjunction with the stop bar. So the signs that you see that say stop here on red and stay behind that white line, those are there for a reason. That's the zone that detects the vehicle. So if you pull out in front of that, the signal thinks that you've already passed through the intersection. So it's imperative to stop before that line.
So another question for you. Is there a way for pedestrians and cyclists to still travel along the Bayfront while this work is going on? So, a lot of our conversation so far has been about the detours for the motoring public, but what about pedestrians and cyclists who there's a lot of those down along the Bayfront?
Yeah, of course. Throughout the entire design phase, one of the critical parts of this was trying to maintain access, not just for vehicles, but also for pedestrians and cyclists throughout the duration of the project. That's why it was designed and it's sort of being constructed in quadrants at a time. So while there's going to be periods where certain portions or sides of the path will be closed, there will always be a detour route posted and shared, not only on site, but also with the local bicycle and pedestrian outlets. Additionally, access will be maintained without interruption through the entirety of the project. Most detours, honestly, are very minimal and will cause little to no headache for the folks that use them.
All right, one more question for you before we let you go. And it's just, we're talking about all of these different places, the different intersections, and all the different things going on at all of these different spots, and all these little things that you have to manage, with all the different ways people want to use the bayfront. So, how do you actually manage all the work happening at all the different intersections at the same time?
Yeah. I mean, I have an exceptional staff representing the department and also a contractor who's very conscientious. We really do work as a team and try to head off issues before they become a problem. And I mean, honest, when added together, there are hundreds, if not thousands of years of construction experience on this project, and then everybody has the same focus really on safety, quality, and efficiency. I mean, no one person can manage everything without trusting their staff and processes. And I'm very fortunate to have the staff and the contractor I do. And additionally, everyone out here has a voice, and it's expected that they speak up and bring ideas forward to kind of help the project as a whole.
Well, thank you, Justin, for all the coordination that you're doing for PennDOT and for the public and for everybody up there. And thank you to your team. Thank you for coming today and sharing all this information with us. Hopefully, we'll be able to have you back when you have more updates or someone else from your team can join us because we are planning on doing another episode on August 6th. That one will be focused on roundabouts, and we'll talk a little bit about, especially about how larger vehicles will get through the roundabouts. So just make sure you check the Facebook group or the project page for the link and the specifics on that one. Tentatively planned for August 6th. If you have any other questions about the Bayfront project or would like to discuss any concerns, you can always email us at bayfrontproject@pa.gov. We can answer your questions directly there, or if you have a question about roundabouts you'd like us to include in our next episode, that's a great place to submit that as well. So this episode has been recorded, so we will be posting it on the web page as well. That is pendot.pa.gov/Bayfront Parkway project. So thank you again, Justin, for joining us. Thank you, Stephanie, for helping produce today's episode. And thank you, everyone, for listening, and have a great afternoon.